If you want to see the fate of democracies, look out the windows.
NV Ranger & Co. has been hired by N54 News and Radio New Vegas for the ultimate assignment. We are to conduct a CEO deathmatch between Saburo Arasaka and Robert House. The report will be released to the public and have a massive impact on their company's values. You must choose right now. Whose stocks are you buying shares of? Arasaka Corporation or Robco Industries? You can only pick one. No diversified portfolios here, buddy. Financial responsibility out the window. Just keep this in mind. This isn't about who you like. It's about who is the better CEO. And no, we're not using criteria like who gives more to charity and treats their families nice. These aren't the good guys. These geriatrics are gonna duke it out over a 7-round death match. 7 categories to judge them as CEOs. The one who wins the most rounds takes the crown, the belt, and the title of champion. Round 1, business creation and development. Plain and simple, who is better at starting a business and making it thrive? House begins this round fighting as a toddler, swinging his diaper around like a bacteria-laced lasso. His parents were struck by lightning while flying around their autogyro. It's this thing that looks like a helicopter, but is not a helicopter. It's also known for being a very safe aircraft. They probably mean that in regards to crashing, but I guess if you get struck by lightning, it doesn't really count. Alright, we don't need to rerun the origin stories on these two characters like this is another Spider-Man movie, but just get the basic gist of things quickly. Robert House's parents die when he is just 2 years old, and his older half-brother steals the family fortune and the family business, leaving him as a Las Vegas orphan. We do not know what happened to him during that time period or how he even survived and got by, but something lit a fire under his ass. He would go on to attend the Commonwealth Institute of Technology. Yep, that one. That was great for his STEM base of math, science, software engineering, and so on, and he would then create Robco Industries at just 22 years of age. Saburo, on the other hand, had a much more relaxed early youth. He was chilling out, growing up on his family compound in Japan. His real struggles didn't begin until World War II, where he would become a fighter pilot. At just 23 years old, they made baby Saburo a lieutenant, and he was feeling himself up in the sky, shooting people down, having a good old time, until eventually someone got him. This would do severe damage to his left eye and left arm, but that's not where it hit him most. It hit him in the heart. I don't mean literally. It just really upset him that he was sidelined from the war effort and had to watch as his country was shamed on the world stage and lost. Saburo's climactic moment in youth, his come-to-Jesus moment, happened when he was burying a dagger into his own torso when he realized, I can get those Americans back. I can take over my father's company and restore Japan to global dominance. That's what this dude was thinking about at 23 years old. With a dagger inside of him, he was thinking, I'm gonna get the whole world back. And so he did. He got to work. He started studying at the University of Tokyo, learning about politics, economics, and history, and then he would continue to study and work under his father until he was 41 years old, when he would then finally take over as CEO of Arasaka. So when we're comparing how these two got their starts in the business world, Robert was forced to build his own business. He didn't have a choice, and build it he did. He made Robco a dominant force on the market in less than a decade. But Saburo, on the other hand, took a much slower approach. He was way older than Robert when he finally took over the company, and it took him many more decades after that before Arasaka would climb to the top. Saburo's early business development, his ability to get Arasaka off the ground, was defined by his opportunist ways. See, Saburo kind of waits for things to fall into place. He makes a series of predictions, and then when those predictions come true, he strikes. But it takes a lot of time for this to occur. Saburo takes over in 1960, but it's not until the 1990s where you have an economic crash and a series of national governments become much weaker, primarily the United States falling apart, where Arasaka finally gains dominance and it becomes a major player on the world stage. Robco under House was a major player on the world stage within 8 years. It probably didn't even take the full 8, but within 8 years, this was an enormous company. This does make quite a bit of sense as well, given that Robco was a tech company. He made robotics available to the average American consumer. He built the unified operating system, which was running on the vast majority of computers across the United States and North America. During this time period, he was slowly making the public dependent on him, but also the United States military. Put it like this, Saburo had the reach advantage and some good timing, but House came out swinging. Speed, aggression, and vision. It's not always all about speed, but when it comes to making a business and making it work, the judges score round 1 and it goes to the House. Round 2, wealth creation, finances. Who's the better moneymaker? Keep that TV or radio on, folks, but this round we gotta do a little bit of math and numbers. At 30 years of age, Robert House was worth $30 billion. Easy to remember. He accumulated that wealth just 8 years after starting his first business. We know that Saburo began with some sort of sizable family fortune. We don't know exactly how much, so we'll assume it was somewhere around $25 million by 1960 when he takes control. At that point, the company was 45 years old. By 2020, this guy was rolling in the cash at $475 billion. Arasaka was doing all right for itself. Using the compound annual growth rate, CAGR, Saburo averaged 17.85% growth per year over those 60 years. Extremely impressive. Those are great numbers. In my very unprofessional opinion, mind you. But when Arasaka goes from the year 2020 to 2077, they only go from 475 billion to 890 billion. Now, I know some of you are going, well, I mean, what a bunch of losers, am I right? But based on that compound annual growth rate, that means Arasaka on average was only growing 1.11% per year. That is not very good. Now, there's a lot going on during that time period as to why Arasaka would not have grown at a good percentage, so this does actually make quite a bit of sense. So now when we take a look at House, again, no family business, no family fortune. We're still going to assume that he starts with $10 million from early investors. He's a young prodigy at CIT. He probably had some level of attention. So when he goes to $30 billion from that initial 10 in 8 years, we're looking at 172% growth per year. Now, even if he starts out with the same amount as we gave Saburo at 25 million, we are still looking at 142% annual growth. No matter where you put the starting line, House's early velocity is unmatched. Now, in fairness, early booms are not sustainable. If he continued at this rate over decades, we couldn't even figure out what numbers he would be at. He would own the entire galaxy at this point. But we can still run some numbers. So we know House is worth $30 billion as of the year 2050. This leaves him with another 27 years before the bombs drop in, obviously 2077. Even if House was reduced to only a standard market expected return of 7%, he is hitting 186.4 billion by the time he's 57 years old. Saburo didn't reach 475 billion until he was 101 years old. If we extend House's time to that point and let House become 101 years old without a Great War occurring, a 7% standard market return would land House with $3.66 trillion by the time Saburo was worth that 475 billion. Now, obviously, when I'm talking about Saburo, it's euro dollars, but they're fairly comparable. Now, if we shift this and say that House was earning at an annual rate at the same of Saburo's past that $30 billion mark at 9.36%, House would be worth a whopping $17.2 trillion. All of this is very hypothetical, of course, and the Great War did occur, so we don't see a lot of these numbers come through, but the proof is pretty clearly in the pudding. House earns at an alarming rate. Somebody get Saburo a stool. This old man's getting his ass beat. Judges give round 2 to Mr. House. He's up 2-0 in the fight. Round 3, fighting off the competition. Which competitor is better at dealing with competition and dominating the market against those competitors? It's true, both of them like to buy up smaller companies and build out a network of subsidiaries under them. House bought companies like Repcon Aerospace and manipulated them to further his efforts in defense contracts. This is a very cool side note. He also wanted to use them for interplanetary mining. He wanted to go gather resources from distant planets to make up for what Earth was lacking, which was the cause of all the resource wars and that nonsense. This guy could also hold a grudge. He began buying out his half-brother's company and former family business, H&H Tools. House was essentially torturing his mentally unwell brother and driving him further into madness. That's cute and all with all the little family dramas and space exploration, but Saburo plays a different game. We're talking black ops teams and leagues of assassins ready to just retire people at any moment. He doesn't just have an army of lawyers, he has actual armies under his wings. Sure, House plays with some big dogs like we mentioned, Poseidon Energy and General Atomics, but they hardly hold a candle to the league Saburo is competing in when it comes to corporate warfare. Arasaka does their own fighting, and they do so in a world where corporations have largely replaced governments. When Arasaka goes to war, it's not just some corporate Cold War and aggressive business practices, it's full-on Armageddon. Cold War is the baseline, hot war is the boiling point, and they're always bubbling. Arasaka has fended off groups of corporations teaming up against them in the FACS. This is the Far Asian Co-Prosperity Sphere. House just doesn't have the competition to prove himself against. He's like a heavyweight in a weak era. He has a couple worthy scraps here and there, but he's mostly just whooping up on cans. Saburo is like Sugar Ray Leonard with a near endless list of Durans, Haglers, and Hearns. If that doesn't mean anything to you, he's got deep competition and he often comes out on top. And that means the judges have scored round 3 to Saburo. He's on the board and in a big way, 2-1 going into the 4th. Round 4, influencing politics and global reach. By 2281, House is the New Vegas government essentially, and he's vying for full control over the Mojave and likely the Earth, to be honest, or what remains of it at least. House was heavily involved in defense contracting. This means, in this case, he's taking contracts from the American military and then supplying them. So they were functioning off of his operating system almost entirely. Point being, through these defense contracts, the American military became largely dependent on House's software. House was probably the most influential figure in North America, but as you expand beyond that region, his reach likely begins to wane like a distant signal. Saburo's empire has been international since he inherited it from his father Sasai. He is the largest producer of Japanese goods in Europe, North America, and Asia. He has headquarters in dozens of countries. Many cities and countries alike pay for Saburo's police forces by allowing Arasaka to dictate local policy and control entire districts and sub-districts. Do you understand what I'm saying? This guy is using his company to control a lot of the world, and not just in terms of money. I'm talking policy. I'm talking making things happen, building infrastructure in entire areas. We can see this with the Arasaka waterfront. We gotta drive this point home here. Many nations or nation states use Arasaka-based security services. These services include a wide range of security teams, systems, and technology, but this all acts as like a false storefront. I mean, it's there, it's real, but it's not the main purpose of it. Think back to round 2, where we saw House dominate in finances. Saburo is less concerned with finances and more concerned with information. He will offer up his security to get on the inside of other corporations, powerful individuals, and government bodies, because once his security network is established, he gains priceless access to these entities' information and databases. And it all largely makes sense to a lot of those entities because they think he's operating under the principles of, if you want to be protected properly by these security teams, you need informed security. And I'm not saying House doesn't value information. That would be so far from the truth. He obviously does. But when it comes to global influence and reach, Saburo is king. Saburo has more countries, city-states, and politicians in his pocket. House fights on home turf. Saburo fights on every continent. The judges award round 4 to Saburo. We have a tie going into the 5th. Round 5, damage control. Mr. House manages his relationships with tact. Robco was involved in numerous joint ventures, even with their most threatening competition. He also layered his business in something known as the Byzantine structure, which I'm not going to pretend to understand, but the basic idea is he used it to obfuscate his role in the business as well as the business itself. This ends up protecting him and his assets. But here comes Saburo and he's coming in this round hot, but that's not exactly a good thing. His corporation has been involved in numerous conflicts, not to mention being a main combatant in what was essentially World War III, also referred to as the Fourth Corporate War. Arasaka willingly engaged in an all-out war with Militech, the other dominant paramilitary corporation. Saburo ran into hiding during the conflict and left his firstborn son Kai to steer the ship. Well, Kai wasn't a great driver because he drove the ship right into a Militech-sized mini-nuke after the pair of them leveled half of the world. Kai commits seppuku as a result of this. Arasaka's twin towers in Night City were destroyed, and the company was forced out of the global market and reduced to a Japan-only shell. They were blamed for the nuke that destroyed their own buildings, and Saburo was shamed even worse than Japan's World War II defeat. I know what some of you are probably thinking. Robco would largely fall to the Great War. They're not exactly pumping out consumer robotics for the average American anymore, and I don't think they still do defense contracts for the Enclave, but the war was not a result of Robco's business practices. The corporation may have been a part of the problem, but the solution to that problem did not require nuclear holocaust. To pair with that, we can also look at these corporations from another angle. Robco uses very limited advertising. They did not shove their face down the throats of consumers like other advertisers in their world did. This put much less of a target on Mr. House's back. Arasaka, on the other hand, stamps their logo on every open wall and surface they can find. They want the populace to know who their corporate overlords are. That is exactly how you end up with riots outside of your headquarters, multiple dead executives, nukes shoved down your throat, and world wars on your doorstep. I'll put it like this. Robco has museum exhibits next to their rivals. Arasaka has mass graves next to theirs. Arasaka has been entirely excommunicated by not only the world order, but by Japan itself. Remember, Saburo's entire goal is built around restoring Japan on the world stage, and his own country was rejecting him, at least in part. And yes, they have rebuilt, but at what cost? Follow the numbers. Between 2020 and 2077, Arasaka averaged just over 1% in annual growth. That is not good at all, especially for a megacorp of their size. But that is a result of their actions, of their damage control. Saburo's wild haymakers left him open. House countered and he lands clean shots. Round 5 goes to House. The judges give it to him. He makes a comeback after losing the last 2. Saburo will drop his old wrinkly Japanese balls right on the boardroom table for everyone to see. House keeps his neatly tucked away in today's sponsor, MeUndies. Just kidding. I'm not sponsored by MeUndies. I'm not sponsored by them yet. Round 6, Legacy. This one is about historical impact, what they leave in the wake of their inevitable death. Even the nuclear fire couldn't erase House's fingerprints. Every vault dweller who survived the bombs and their vault walked out wearing his product. Every terminal still boots his code. Can we tell the history of the pre-war era without mentioning Robco? Consumer robotics bring the future to the present, software standardized across an entire nation. Can you discuss the time frame from 1960 to 2077 without mention of Arasaka? Cyberware on millions of people with their logo, guns and vehicles with their stamp of approval, security teams and surveillance deciding the fate of man and nation alike. It's close, I'll admit. House and Saburo continue on trading blows. What about succession? Now, I found something interesting when researching our competitors. There was apparently some dialogue left on the cutting room floor for Mr. House, where he would tell the courier that they were the child he wished he'd had, but he hadn't. House has no succession plan. Saburo didn't start his goals of Japanese dominance with life-extending cyberware or personality-copying engrams. He had kids, 3 to be exact, and he tended to them all. Not with tender love and care, but careful grooming to best ensure they carry on his goals after he dies. This definitely didn't play out perfectly, but we're not exactly talking about if his goals will come to fruition. We're talking about his historical impact and his legacy, him still in some way existing after he dies. House bet on himself, and it's a fine bet, but Saburo rigged the game in his favor. He'll have an international megacorp bloodline left standing to sing his tunes, and House will just have that lousy, pre-recorded, self-indulgent, and ultimately kind of pathetic message to play on repeat throughout New Vegas when he goes. House's legacy is ultimately built on dreams. Saburo's legacy is built in reality. So the judges give round 6 to Saburo. The final round is here. Everything hinges on this moment. How cliche, how scripted is this? You can already hear the chants of rigged in the background, and we don't even know who won. Round 7. This is all about longevity. Who is built to stand the test of time and adapt to their circumstances? Both competitors are battling it out with cybernetic enhancements that extend their life well beyond the standard. Both men likely hold the records for longest acting CEO in their universe's history. Saburo made it to a very respectable 158 years old and could continue in some way via his personality engram. He made a backup of himself basically. House is 261 years old and counting. He could die any day now due to an unforeseen factor, but he also could push on. Longevity isn't just about the number though, we have to look at the quality. Mr. House slips the nuclear war and bobs under Father Time's nasty right hook, but he didn't get out of either fight unscathed. The harsh reality for House is that he only spent 35 years as a CEO before the bombs fell, and he spent many decades either in a coma or dormant, quietly working behind the scenes in the aftermath of the Great War. He's trying to fix his systems that lacked the much desired upgrades he needed from the Platinum chip. Even though Saburo didn't become a CEO until much later in life, he has spent the majority of his 158 years in control of his company. House is on the ropes, fading in the final round. House existing after the world ended wasn't an accident. He was known for running the numbers and predicting the future. Saburo was also used to doing this, but he didn't see the mini-nuke headed towards his company. House saw it all coming, years out, so much so that he was able to protect an entire city and preserve not only himself, but the place he was born in, his home. When it comes to longevity, he didn't just make a copy of his personality and have a few kids. He created a chamber to preserve his physical form and a supercomputer to supplement his mind. Unlike Saburo's legacy, his longevity is tied to him. Inevitably, his kids will alter his vision. Kai didn't last, Yorinobu and his granddaughter Michiko want reform, and Hanako is more consumed by the net than her father's grand visions for Japan. He may have succession for his legacy, but his investment in longevity isn't as concrete. House committed everything to ensuring he was prepared for whatever could be tossed at him. It's a matter of mathematics for him. He would control every variable in his immediate vicinity to ensure his future. Saburo's global reach, extended family tree, and nationalistic pipe dreams left him with blind spots, and I'm not just talking about the one in his left eye. We can see his arrogance getting the better of him when he shoos away his security despite its clear necessity. His son strangled him while two 2-bit thieves watched from the same room. That's not longevity, that's hubris. His company is led into uncertainty after his death, and thus his goals go with it. Saburo adapted during that fourth corporate war by hiding, leaving his son out to dry. House adapted to war by reframing the situation. If everyone is destroyed, I will have a clean slate to build upon, and I'll make sure to be there for it. Saburo plans for succession because he knows he will likely die before his goals are fully achieved. House doesn't play like that. He doesn't plan for failure. His baseline is success at all costs. Carry civilization forward on his back, drag them by the scruff of the neck if he has to. Longevity as a CEO is about achieving your goals across time and across different situations, adapting to the problems you are confronted with. This is Robert House. Saburo did die. We know this. We know his company's future is within question. He could live on through his personality engram. It is a possible outcome, but not an assured one. We also could see another Militech nuke land on the orbital servers of Mikoshi. And then what? House is moving like he's not a 261-year-old bag of bones. Jab, cross, left hook. Oh my god, Saburo is flat out on the canvas. House is standing above him, nose bleeding, eyes black and blue, sweat dripping from the stash. But we don't need judges. This deathmatch has ended by way of knockout. The crowd goes wild. They're chanting, "The House always wins. The House always wins. House is the champion CEO."